I was complaining about how hard I had it in life as a 3D artist. You know, you need to get the clients, which is super hard. Even when you get the clients, some of them are very difficult to work with. If you are a freelancer, they usually don't respect your time. Most of the clients will give you a completely misleading brief. I mean, you get the idea, it's pretty nasty stuff, right? Tons of stuff I usually complain about. But then I stumbled upon this guy on YouTube. He's a cinematographer and creative director with 13 years of experience. In most cases, he shoots commercial videos for products, which is something that I am doing for a living, but I'm doing it in 3D. Now, watching this guy explain what it takes to be a cinematographer in real life, I quickly realized how foolish I was for complaining about my career. And I know I'm not the only 3D artist out there complaining about how hard it is to make a living by doing 3D stuff. So if you are just about to complain to your wife or a friend about how evil Blender developers removed bloom effect from Eevee Next and repositioned the install add-on button somewhere else in the UI, hold on for a couple of minutes and let me walk you through your $1 million studio you got served on a silver plate at the very moment you installed the Blender. I will also tell you a little bit about all the problems that you don't have but traditional cinematographers have all the time. And once we go through all that, I will make short product animation in Blender's $1 million studio. Now let me show you some of your cinematography gear, everything that you have in Blender by default without any add-ons. And yeah, one more thing, I will only show you the things that are on the pricey side, not all the other things like monitors, light stands, backdrops, green screens. You get the point. Why not start with the big guns, right? I remember seeing this monster on MKBHD about 6 years ago, and it absolutely blew my mind what you can do with it. Of course, very few creators have access to such expensive equipment. Even when they do, it's usually just for a day when they rent it. So they have very limited time to test it out and actually do something with it. So imagine the stress when you rent something like that and you only have a day. And don't forget that robot hands have their limits when it comes to precision and movement. They're also huge, which means that they can get in the way of lighting and in your way, of course. You also need to actually learn how to use the thing. Of course, in Blender you can replicate robot movements in just a few easy steps by parenting the camera to an object with an object constraint. Now you can really get creative with the camera movements and achieve things that are close to impossible in real life. Cinema cameras are super expensive. For most creators they are just a dream that will never come true, unfortunately. And yes, you might argue that you can begin with a more affordable camera and make some compromises to the quality, but no one actually wants to compromise. It is in our nature to only want the best of the best. Like for example Sony Venice. This camera costs around 58k without any lenses, which is just crazy amount of money. Not to mention that you need to be a seasoned professional to understand how to use it. However, in Blender you can simulate this or any other camera for free. You can choose different sensor sizes, resolutions, frame rates, shutter speeds, file formats, basically everything. Now results won't be the same in terms of color science, but there is nothing you cannot fix in the post. There are so many different lenses that you can choose from. Different focal lengths, f-stops, build quality, but what they all have in common, they're all crazy expensive. And you can't have only one, you need different lenses for different shots. So as you already assumed, you can simulate any lenses in Blender with few clicks, from really wide lenses to zoom lenses, different focal lengths, anything. The only thing you care about really is your desk lamp or light on your ceiling. Cinematographers, however, need to be lighting experts and spend a fortune on different lighting solutions. High quality lights are very expensive, they're also massive, hard to transport, difficult to set properly, and very power hungry. Your lighting setup in Blender is equally versatile and way easier to set up. Above everything, it doesn't cost any money, and you certainly don't need to be lighting expert in order to make decent lighting. Tripods are also very expensive, especially because you can't put a camera that costs almost 60 grand on a $60 tripod. You need a tripod that can carry some weight and hold everything super secure. You want to be able to put expensive gear on the tripod and not worry about the safety. They also come with different video heads that allow you to pan and tilt camera. Video heads are super pricey, which isn't really a surprise at all. And this is your tripod in Blender. You're getting it by default. You don't need to do anything, it's super steady and secure. It's also invisible and won't get in your way. Additionally, if you want to have a tilt or pan video head, you can simply rotate the camera around the axis you want and set some keyframes. Cranes and dollies are responsible for some awesome shots in cinematography, and they can get as expensive as a fancy house. As you already assumed, you can easily replicate those shots in Blender with just a couple of frames, the same way we did it for the robot camera shots. Both traditional videographers and 3D artists face some challenges in their careers. Let's take a look at the common challenges first. Tough deadlines, difficult clients, taxes and accounting. Portfolio, but developing a portfolio is way more expensive and you need all the gear for the projects. You need a decent computer for both careers. You also need to invest in education, but it is a way bigger investment to learn how to become a filmmaker. But do you know what other things traditional videographers need to worry about? And you absolutely don't. They need to have actual expensive gear, all the things we already mentioned, plus 100 little gadgets that cost a fortune. They need a customized van to transport the gear. They need insurance for the van and the gear. There are also road fees, parking fees and gas. They need to have storage space for all the equipment, and they need a lot of it. Many different software subscriptions, tons of storage for the files, the actual team of people that will work with them because they can't do it alone. These are just some of the challenges that they experience. An average 3D artist doesn't have any of these challenges or expenses. We need our PC and a couple of tutorials and we are good to go. So let's go and make a quick animation that in real life might require a team of people and probably 2 days of work. Of course, if the product exists. Remember, as a 3D artist you can animate products that are still in development and don't exist yet. So yeah, let's do it. This is our scene. It doesn't look like much, of course, but we have tons of light here and all lights are parented to our product actually with object constraints, so no matter where you move them, they're still pointed in the right direction, which is something that's just impossible in real life. You can see that we have a couple of key lights, rim light and the top light. Of course we have our product and I have a couple of empties. One is for focus and the other one is actually camera rig. Camera is actually parented to this rig empty with object constraint, so when I move the rig, camera moves with it. And also when you move the camera, it's always pointed in the right direction, which is again something that's really close to impossible in real life unless you are using robot camera, which we already mentioned is crazy expensive, and here in Blender is really simple to do. Now for the first sequence I actually just wanted to make a little b-roll with camera going from the bottom to the top of the product, kind of revealing how the product looks like. And I just needed a couple of keyframes for the camera because camera is always pointed at the product, so it's really easy to make something that looks nice. You can see how it turned out. I'm always testing my animations while I'm working on them, especially for this kind of animations where I'm actually making a one-take animation, so everything will be one take, no separate sequences, no cuts, nothing. This is the camera movement for the second sequence, where I actually show the knob, adjusting knob of the product. You can see here on this test that camera now shows the knob with a very smooth camera movement. Again, something that's possible to achieve only with camera robot. And the next thing I wanted to do is to actually show a ball head of this tripod, which is one of the main parts, of course, of this product. So I again just moved camera around the scene, finding the angle that looks good, where lighting actually looks good on the product, and this is how it turned out. Again, showing the legs first, and then camera gets like straightened, looking in the front of the product. Then we are showing the knob, we'll do a little rotation of the knob, and then we are showing the actual ball head. Now this movement was really aggressive. I didn't like it, so I adjusted it later to be way smoother and slower. I also animated this ball head, so you can see it pops up like that, which is something that user in real life would do. So we want to really simulate how user would look at this product, with legs being the most interesting part of the product, and then showing this adjusting knob, ball head. You can see how it pops up, but we here had a problem that camera is actually getting too close to the ball head, as you can see. So I needed to add one more frame. You can see I'm here adding one more frame that gets camera further away from the ball head. It was a bit too fast, but I adjusted it, so now it looks like this. Again, very slow, very smooth. It's for product teaser after all. And you can imagine text just popping up here in the animation, explaining different parts, so this can also be used as explainer video. And for the next sequence, I just actually placed the camera on the tripod. It's just a couple of keyframes, nothing crazy here. Again, super easy. And I actually needed to move Blender camera in different angle because my camera object didn't have any details on the bottom, so I wanted to avoid showing camera from the bottom. And this was another test. Again, testing is super important while you are making one take animations like this. At this point I was pretty much happy with all the movements and how camera just simply slides into its place. So for the next camera movement, I just wanted to move camera a bit further away to show how actual camera looks on the product. Again, very simple process, because camera is parented to our product. It always moves where we want it. So it was just as simple as adding one additional frame and showing product from a bit of a distance. So I think at this point it's starting to look pretty nice. So what I did next is just moved camera back closer, right, to the subject, to our tripod, to show more details and to actually show how legs are getting folded, because that is one of the main selling points of this tripod actually. Legs are super adjustable, and you can see that I have a rig here on the legs, and I can move each segment of the leg separately. So I kind of tried to do something that looks nice. And I must admit that I really did a sloppy job here with the legs, but I think it serves the purpose as a proof of concept of what you can do in Blender Studio, but not in real life studio, because this would require some sort of stop motion with like hundreds of photographs, and it would be like really tiring process. So yeah, I think for a proof of concept it worked really well. And you can see here that I'm just moving focus empty around and focusing on different parts of the product. This is the thing that I'm doing last, because I want to have camera movements established, and I want to have final camera movements before I actually focus on anything. And I also rotated the knobs, and this is how the final animation looks like. You can see how lighting gets nice, that trim light really gets nice, and then we have this camera robot movement, knob adjustment, ball head pops up, camera gets screwed into the place, and legs kind of move in a funny way that I don't like, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think.